Welcome everyone, come in, come in. If you're still coming at the back, great, come in. Welcome to our panel session kicking off this afternoon, Entrepreneurial Women. I'm Lisa Parfitt, I am a director of Women in Football. I'm also a co-founder of my own business, The Space Between, a sports marketing agency, which I started 4 years ago. The success of every woman should be an inspiration. We should raise each other up. A lovely quote from a very little-known tennis player called Serena Williams. Don't know if you've heard of her, but I live my life by everything she says. I hope that's what we're going to do today, because the 4 women I have on the panel here are inspirational. They're incredible entrepreneurs. I'm incredibly inspired by all of them, and I hope that they can lift you up. And if you have a gem of an idea that you think might be a business, I hope that this might give you some of the inspiration to take the leap. Our panel today is sponsored by Xero, small business accounting software. Now, if you had asked me 4 years ago that I would be sitting up here advocating for an accounting software brand, I would have laughed. But I work with them, they are wonderful human beings, and they are the most incredible platform. Laura will go on to talk about Finance Fridays that she does with Xero and a cup of coffee and a cake later on. They're an amazing brand. They are also amazing because they are sponsors, and they have come in double-footed into women's football. They have come in as a partner of the FIFA World Cup, the England women's team, Lewis FC, and of course, Women in Football. So how perfect. Last year, during the Women's World Cup and their marketing campaign, they kind of really accelerated what they were doing and wanted to leave a legacy, and they launched, together with Women in Football, the Entrepreneur Mentorship Program. It was inspired by women who have been tirelessly working in both the men and the women's game, who are now going on to create their own businesses and taking control of their own careers, and that's what it was really inspired by. And the program provides promising startup founders with a complete package of vital support, and it's a game of 2 halves. There's enterprising skills and knowledge and one-to-one mentoring, and Ella Williams, who is on the panel today, is one of those founders who is on the program. And Laura Youngson is an ambassador, a mentor, as am I, and I'm going to give a shout out to Lowry somewhere. Lowry, put your hand up, who is the co-founder of Play with Purpose, who's amazing, is on the program as well. So we're going to meet these amazing women now who have taken the leap to create their own businesses, and we're going to find out more about what inspires them, what drives them, what are the challenges, and a bit about how important it is to have a network. So first of all, I'm going to go down the line and just ask you each to introduce yourself and give us your elevator pitch for your business and what you do. Kate, start with you.
Hi everyone, so I'm Kate Hamer. I have 2 businesses, so my own consultancy where I work with sports organisations on marketing strategy, digital projects, and then I've got a startup called AxisStars with the ex-footballer Louis Saha, which is for pro athletes, and it's a private community that supports them preparing and transitioning out of sport.
Thanks, Kate. Bex?
Which is very cool because I'm on the platform and it has been very helpful as a former athlete. So used to play football, chase a ball for a living for about 30 years, and then worked at FIFA for 5 organizing the Women's World Cup, then on to digital creative, and then started my own company about 4 or 5 years ago. So Crux Sports was started because I saw a major gap between actually the football and what really is happening on the ground and with players and with coaches and teams and the business side. So it was really trying to bridge that gap. So coming from a business background from my education and obviously chasing a ball for many years gave me that expertise. So really trying to cut out all the fluff and get to the crux. And so we work with loads of different stakeholders in and around football, mostly women's football, but female athletes, trying to bring expertise either from the football side or the business side, or connecting those as well.
Ella, tell us about your business, Our Goal.
Yep, so hi everyone, my name's Ella, and my business is Our Goal. Our Goal is a Manchester-based not-for-profit that exists to empower women and girls. Our vision is to empower every girl to be active and to reach her full potential. So we do it in 2 ways, through female-led community football sessions, but particularly that are designed and delivered to encourage girls to be strong, physical and vocal, characteristics that you will agree like are so important in women and girls and are not always encouraged. And also through mentoring, which is designed to tackle the 42% teenage dropout of girls from sport. So that's 42% of teenage girls that used to be sporty and drop out in their teenage years. So that program, I work with the girls and co-construct a mentor and physical activity program with them that overcomes the barriers that they face. So whether that's negative self-body image, not wanting to wear the PE kit, having to get changed. It's really about overcoming those barriers, building positive, lifelong relationships with physical activity to boost their mental and physical health and well-being. And I'm also a mentee on the program, as you mentioned, which we'll talk a bit more about later, I think.
Amazing. And Laura, tell us about your business.
So I run Ida Sports, and we make women's football boots, arguably the best women's football boots on the planet.
I'm not sure it's arguable, actually.
No, not arguable, is it? We are. Awesome. And I started this because I hated wearing kids' shoes, and I'm an adult female, and this is weird. And I was like, why is no one else finding this weird? There's women's running shoes. Why are there not women's football boots? And I got to chat to loads of professional players, and they're all wearing men's and kids as well. And I was like, there is something in this. So set up a company to make football boots.
Amazing. So let's start, every business starts with an idea, and it's really exciting to see the opportunities that I think women are spotting within football, and particularly within women's football as well, and bringing that really unique insight and approach. So starting, Bex, with you, tell me how coming from that playing background really inspired you, and what opportunities you were starting to see, and how you've kind of been able to unlock that.
I think it's been a long journey, and I really wasn't, my dad's an entrepreneur, so I've always kind of wanted to do my own thing, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And then with a background in business, I sort of understood how to do that, but really the idea was not there. And when I first moved to London, I'd come from the playing side, been at FIFA, seen all the interesting things there, both good and bad, and then started going into more content, and that was where I sort of came to London and met some amazing agencies, including you and your amazing agency, but also saw that there was a lot of people working in and around the game that really could have a big impact in the game, but that were kind of doing a tick box exercise, or let's take this off the shelf and how do we do marketing for maybe men's football or men's rugby or something else, and kind of copy pasting. And I thought, if you took that money that you had as a brand and really activated what really the sport needs, for example, Xero, so I worked with them on their global sponsorship with FIFA, so I had loads of conversations there, and then looked at the FA partnership as well, and really looked at, okay, what does the FA need? What do we need in this country for girls as well as small businesses, which there's a really big crossover in like women's football and small business owners, weirdly enough. And also I didn't know Xero either 4 or 5 years ago, and then they became a client and I started using them. So, so I think it was really trying to figure out bring that expertise, this is a lot of the things that have been said today and yesterday as well. I think there's a lot of people think that there's things that are happening in the women's game, players this, brands this, and actually a lot of it's not true, a lot of it actually is not what people are saying. So it really is important to be on the ground, to understand clubs, to understand what's really going on, so that brands can have better activations, or federations can make better decisions, or a club competition can be built in a better way that will actually help players develop rather than hindering them and making them get more ACL injuries, for example. So that was where I saw the opportunity, and it's taken me all over, because it's really hard to explain Crux Sports because we work with such a wide variety of stakeholders in the game. I hosted, we created I became like a speaking coach all of a sudden around the Women's Euros, because they were doing the host city celebration. So we taught the host cities how to speak on stage, and we hosted a whole event. So I became like an event organizer, planner, host, speaker. We do a lot of random things, but it's quite a lot of fun.
The absolute definition of portfolio. I mean, working with AI brands, right, and technology, and it's amazing.
Investment,
And would you anticipate that players in the future, there's this opportunity, like more opportunity for players to be involved. We've talked a lot about, actually, over the last few days about player involvement, protecting our players, looking after our players. Do you see there being more of a role for them in the future in terms of business development within the game?
That's such a good question, Lisa. I think that the sport's changing so much. So as it becomes more professional, I think what we're also seeing is that players are doing less and less outside of football. I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. I think what helped me a lot in my football career was that I always worked or studied. So I wanted to be more of a well-rounded person. So when I came out of the football and didn't know what to do, I wasn't so reliant on things that weren't there, like AxisStars when I was starting. So I think we're seeing players becoming a lot more specified in what they do, which means they probably have a less understanding of the business of football. But certainly there are some amazing players, and Nadia Nadim is a doctor, and so many great people that could find those roles. But I think that they have to have the expertise as well, because I think a lot of times, coming from the playing side, we ask players for advice on the business side, and they don't really see the big picture. Well, we don't get as much money from the prize money. It's like, well, yeah. Because it's a completely different market. Like the business needs to grow up and be able to generate that revenue to then give back the prize money. So it's so complex, and I think players don't really have that global view of things.
Particularly now, as it's more professional and more professionalised, so the demands on their time are greater. But interesting, there's been investment.
That was a much more succinct way of saying
it. No.
No,
it's interesting. Actually, if there's more money coming in, you've seen Leah Williamson investing in businesses, female investors, which I think is really interesting, and where they will choose to put their money, I'm sure it will be within the game.
Yep.
Ella, I'm going to come to you because I think you've got great inspiration. So tell us a bit about the inspiration of the film Copper 71, which is a film that was released on International Women's Day last week. I'm going to ask you to tell more about it. I just wanted to plug a film because it's so cool to be able to plug a film. But tell us about Copper 71, what that is, but how that was inspiration for your business that you've created.
Yes. Has anyone managed to see Copper 71? Yeah, it came out in cinemas last week. So for anyone that's not seen it, firstly, you have to go and see it. And secondly, it is the story of the highest attended women's sporting event in history that nobody has ever heard of. So this is the 1971 Women's World Cup, the final of which had 110,000 fans, which is a world record that has still not been broken, and nobody has ever heard of this tournament, because when the women got back, they were banned, they were shamed, they were sent letters home saying, don't go back to your grassroots club because you've gone out and played in this tournament in Mexico under the national ban on women's football. So I had the privilege of being part of the team that made that film, and really for me, working on Copper was always more than just a job, because actually I would describe myself as an activist in this space, women in football and women in sport. And so the legacy of this film and of the women's story was so important to me. And so Copper's, as a film, it proves the positive impact that sport and physical activity can have on women and girls, because you can see in these women that they're powerful, that they're resilient, and that they're strong. And so I wanted to use that, and actually those values are so strong in our goal because it's about making those benefits accessible for every girl. So about a month after finishing production of the film, I set up our goal alongside 3 of the women that were out in Mexico, 3 of the 71 players and the film director as well. They're sitting on my board of ambassadors. So Copper's played a massive part in setting up our goal.
That's amazing. And our goal is a not-for-profit, is that right? It's a CIC?
Yeah.
And what's your goal for our goal? What's the ambition?
Well, the vision is to empower every girl to be active and to reach her full potential. So it's about breaking down the barriers. We've got a particular focus on teenage girls because I think that's where there's such a huge drop-off and there's so many barriers. And thinking about PE, for example, I don't think it's necessarily been designed with girls in mind, and there's so many things that need to change there. But yeah, just making sure that every girl has access to opportunities that mean that she can benefit from sport.
Amazing. Kate, I'm going to come to you. We've got such a diverse range of businesses on here. It's absolutely amazing. Kate, tell me what compelled you to make the leap. You've held roles at L'Oreal, lots of incredible brands, on digital marketing. What compelled you to make the leap to start your own digital consultancy and then AxisStars as well? I mean, there's many things that you're working on.
Yeah, so I think I'd done sort of 15 years in the corporate world. So yeah, I was at L'Oreal, Disney, Unilever, Orange, but was getting to, 2 points, I suppose. One was that I was the most senior person in digital there, and I was spending a lot of time educating just one company around how they could use digital, and was starting to think, I could be doing this with like loads of different brands and companies and getting to work across a whole range of things. And the second thing was that I'm quite sort of purist and ethical, I suppose, in terms of what I'm doing. And some of the marketing that I was doing was selling things that people didn't necessarily need, and it wasn't making them feel good about themselves. And I think I'm a massive fan of marketing. I absolutely love it, and I think it's got real potential to make differences in all kinds of ways, but it needs to always start with the consumer need first, and then build something like you have with your business, like you have with the boots, to respond to that. And I think it was an opportunity to sort of go out alone. At the time, I was thinking if I didn't do it, this is like 9 years ago, everybody would be digitally transformed and they'd all know what to do and there'd be no need for consultants. And 9 years on, I realised I've got plenty of time left. So
you can help me figure out how to do a PDF here from my Word document if you want.
So, yeah, and I suppose the other thing that was sort of making me think, is this the right thing, is that, you know, people will say, oh, well, you don't want to leave the safety of employment and you've got your pay coming in regularly. But actually, if you want to work for someone who's got your absolute best interests at heart, there's nobody better than yourself. And especially, I think, in recent years, if you look at how many people have been laid off suddenly at big brands like Google and all those kind of places, I'm now my longest term employer, which I didn't think was going to happen, but I'm still here. And so I think it was the right thing to do. I suppose from then the AxisStars point of view.
I mean, if you've got one, you might as well start another one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Just keep going.
Yeah, no,
Things happen in threes anyway.
You got another one in you.
Yeah.
Go on, tell us about
plenty
that.
more. So yeah, and this would be another bit of advice, I guess, if you're looking to start your own business. Like, always hustle, and if there's stuff that interests you, like, have a crack at it. So basically, I read an interview that Louis Saha had done with The Guardian about his idea for AxisStars, and thought, oh, I reckon I could help with that. Let me see if he's on LinkedIn. And there was a Louis Saha on LinkedIn, and I thought this will be like a spoof account, but I'll message it. And it replied quickly, and I was like, yeah, it probably is a fake, but I'm going to call this guy out. And anyway, it was him. And what was initially going to be, you know, maybe some consultancy, and I could help him do his marketing strategy or whatever, we met in person and just really clicked, because neither of us are in this because we want to be like millionaires. We want to make a difference. We want to empower people. We want to remove some of the sharks in the industry. So I ended up investing and becoming a co-founder, and that was that.
So you got another one. We've got a third one to come next
Yeah,
year. Next
got other
panel.
ideas.
Next year, you'll come back and tell us about it. Amazing. Laura, you entered possibly one of the most competitive markets in the world. And I think that takes enormous courage, an amazing business plan as well, but enormous courage. What was your driver? What was the thing you was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take them all on.
Yeah, with hindsight. No, with hindsight, it's actually, we're in an even stronger position. So when I began, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, but there's three options, right? We're going to get crushed by Nike and Adidas, and then I'm going to cry, but we'll have changed history because we'll have women's boots everywhere. Or we're going to grow something and it will go big, or we'll get bought. And so I was like, fine, any of those options is a win for me. I mean, obviously getting crushed financially not as great, but any of those options is a win, because we're able to transform the ecosystem and actually get women's boots everywhere. What we've realized going through it is actually, and so before we even start, I did think about doing a campaign, because I'm quite activist. We've done these world records as well, and, you know, kind of pushing for that. And I was like, oh, I could do a campaign, and we could just knock on the door of Nike and be like, yeah, you should make women's boots. And actually now, with what I know, like, we're entering as a commercial space and seeing this gap, they just wouldn't have changed. They just wouldn't have changed. It's so slow. And the fact that the pace of change within these big organizations is like the Titanic. They're sort of lumbering around. And we're able, as a startup brand, to be super agile and responsive to the market. And to your point on consumers, we make something that people want. So there is this gap that we see that is both a commercial opportunity. We're not entering, whilst it might appear on the surface to be a crowded space, it's actually a new space because there's men's and unisex, and there hasn't been women's. So when we enter into a store, we're actually ranged in a different place. We're just taking up new space that just didn't exist before. So this is great for our business because so there's an education hurdle where everyone's going, wait, what? My feet are different? What? You can have things that are for women? What? And that kind of education takes a little bit to go over, and actually Nike releasing the Luna really helped us. We saw a spike in sales. Once people are through, yeah, it's great. Once they're through the education hurdle, it then is a lot easier to have the conversation, and you get people say, oh, that's why my feet hurt, or this is why. And the ECA study that came out, 82% of professional female players in Europe have pain or discomfort when they play from their shoes. Brilliant for us. Because we're like, yeah, duh. That's why we're making women's shoes. So whilst it might appear on the surface that it's a super crowded space, actually for us, or for me especially, seeing that gap, seeing that opportunity and targeting that gap and knowing that I've got consumers that will see that, that's been the kind of way I navigated it. And almost when I began, I was really worried about getting crushed. And then now I'm like, bring it on.
Come and crush me.
Yeah, do it,
We'll
because
bounce back.
we're going to go for you. So we're about to, I think, Adidas have used one of our trademarked things. So I'm just debating whether we've got enough money to have a fight.
Where were you like 10 to 100 years ago when I was playing? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But that's amazing that you'd set out these kind of almost different criteria. Actually, you didn't go, that's the one thing I'm going to do, and if that doesn't happen, it was like, these are the kind of scenarios, and actually you're almost mapping out, it doesn't mean that one thing means I failed. It means that there's these different ways it can go, and actually you've evaluated, I'm going to do it anyway.
And still to this day, I wake up in the morning and I know that I might get crushed as a business, which is really sad. But I also know that we've changed how they think. So when Nike released the Phantom Luna, someone texted me to say, because they were on the Nike chat boards, that Nike released it as a result of IDA existing. So you're like, great. We have just changed a $165 billion company with our little tiny startup. So it's very much Davida versus Goliath. And you know, the fact that you can pivot these enormous corporations by merely standing up and existing that's the attractive thing for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice to make some money as well, don't you?
Bex, talk to me a bit more about the challenges that you have. We've talked about starting up and setting up, and I thought Emma was amazing yesterday talking about, I think she got us all to relate to, we walk into a room where we're smiling, and sometimes there's a whole heap of stuff behind that smile, and you're feeling like, someone didn't turn up today, I lost an account, how do you deal with that when you're on your own, running as your business, and what are the kind of challenges that you found quite difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of parallels between being an entrepreneur and being an elite athlete, because, I mean, I've definitely lost more than I've won on the pitch, and that's probably because I played for New Zealand and didn't choose US. But I think you just learn how to get back up and just keep going. So there's really no, you talk about failure, you talk about, oh, what is this? What's the definition of failure? I think as an entrepreneur, there isn't really any failure. You just keep going, and you adapt, and what I would call pivot. So I can't go down there because now there's the passing lane stop, so I side to the side, and then I try another way. So you're constantly trying to move and pivot. And when I started Crux, it was going to be actually a lot more about player care and player support, and then that post-career transition, which is why we got, Kate and I met, and Louis, ages ago, wasn't it? Like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And since then, the business has taken so many different turns, and it's been amazing. I think the biggest challenge that I find now is, now that I have a rhythm and you have some nice clients and you work with some good people, it's making sure that you're finding the right people that are the same vibe as you, because I think I'm in the women's game because I really genuinely believe it's the best mechanism for social and cultural change. And that's kind of it. I mean, there is massive, I understand the business case, and that's clearly why we're all in it as well, because we do want to make money. But I think that it does have the biggest impact when you look around the world now. Who are we looking at? Politicians? Oh, not in America, and we're certainly not, different countries, not really, but where are we looking for our role models? And a lot of it's in sport. So I think it's really about trying to find the people that have that same passion for you, and clients that are really aligned with what your values and your proposition is when you go to market. And so that's my biggest challenge now, is sort of weeding through a lot of emails or phone calls or people that want to have chats where I don't want to work with people that are not aligned with what I want to be doing, and I want to be working with amazing people and people that are better than me, so I can learn and I can constantly grow. And it becomes more and more challenging the longer you're in it to find those people that can really inspire you and become your role models. So.
Yeah. And who do you talk to about those challenges? Do you have mentors or sounding board? Because when you're on your own, I will come on to networks and how important networks are, because this, part of this is about a network that WIF's created. But who do you talk to about that stuff?
Yeah,
how do you decide if it's a yes or a no, or
No, it's a great, and I mean, women in football, it's a great example, isn't it? That, if you're starting out, that can be a really nice resource for a lot of you guys if you are looking to start out and start your own business, where you can always reach out and ask questions. But yeah, I have loads of mentors. My parents have always been my mentors. My dad's an entrepreneur, and he was in fashion, and I'm in football. So I think we had like some gender role switch at some point, which probably explains a lot about, why I just never really saw very many barriers. But yeah, so my parents are very big role models, and I do have a lot of business advisors, and I pay for consulting. So I pay someone to consult me, and that person sometimes changes. So I've had different consultants along the way, but I do believe that if someone has done it better and is bigger and is really successful, it is actually worth paying someone to give you that type of advice. Whereas I think a lot of people are looking for free advice, or can you help me? Can I have a coffee? And if you want that advice and someone really is really good at what they do, pay for it.
Yeah, good advice. Laura, the gender investment gap is a very real thing. Women receive significantly less investment, particularly in the early capital raises. Is this something that you've encountered with your business? And how have you overcome that challenge, or how do you approach it?
Yeah, and to be honest, it is as woeful as the stats sound. So it was at 4%. 4% of venture capital funding goes to women. It's gone down to 2%. It's 0.02% for women of color. So that stat is as bad as it sounds. And so it can initially make you think, oh God, and I want to go get some money to do the things. It's really hard. And before I talk about that, I mean, one of the things to be aware of if you are starting a business is kind of deciding what type of business you want to run. So I was talking to Bex about this earlier, do you want to grow it? Do you want to build Crux Sports? And if you grow it, potentially you might need some investment to grow it. But maybe you want to keep it small and keep it like boutique, or for example with Ida, we could have kept it as, hey, I'm going to build something, it's going to take a bit longer, and I'm going to pass it down to my kids. I'm not. I decided to go on the path of we're going to grow it as fast as we can, and we're going to take investment, and we're going to really hit it hard and see where we can get to. And so once you make that decision, then it's like, okay, well, who's going to fund you? At the beginning, we literally bootstrapped, pun intended, the business, and had to fund the first production run ourselves. And it wasn't until we got into an accelerator program that we then got the network, which then led to another accelerator program, which then led to a wider network of people. And now we're almost at the stage. So I'm about to do a price round, which is where you value the business and you get more money in. And we've got people coming to us, finally. It's been a long slog in terms of trying to get money into the business. But one of the interesting things, so I had a conversation yesterday with some investors, which actually went incredibly well, and I think they're going to do 75% of my seed rounds. So I'm very happy.
Wow.
Thank you. Clap me once it's in the bank account. But at the end of the meeting, all guys, 6 guys and me, it's normal, they're like, oh yeah, we really just want to invest in women's football and women's sport. We can't find any businesses. And I'm like,
oh my,
hold up. I can help you with that. So I think one of the problems and the disconnect, and the reason it's fantastic to have this Xero mentoring program, is actually there's a number of systemic challenges to getting an investable business that people want to put money in. The money is there. The challenge is at the grassroots, or sort of, you might have a great idea for a business, but maybe you're not investable yet. So what does that mean? Your idea might be good, but maybe you haven't got all the financial models together, or you haven't got this plan together, and investors like to see things in a particular way. So joining those dots between how you nurture the grassroots and build those networks. Like, you don't even know how to put your foot in the door because you don't know, like, and so-and-so went to so-and-so's school and then they did a call on a WhatsApp and then you're like, yeah, but you all know each other, right? And so once you kick through those doors, then I think part of the goal is to bring as many people through with you to then get investable businesses, and if that's the route you want to take, going to solve those problems, get money in, and then be able to take up space that I think we as women should be taking up, because I see a lot of men trying to capitalize on women's football, fine, but why not let the women do it? Because we've all got these lived experiences, we know the consumers, we know the spaces to be in, we see the opportunities. So I think joining those gaps is such a fundamental, I mean, it's something I'm super passionate about, but it's also a real responsibility, I think, for investors. I hear a lot of people that are like, I just want to invest in women's football, and you're like, well, do it. It's not that hard.
Yeah. Ella, tell us a bit about, we've talked about the challenges, but there's a great deal of freedom that comes from running your own business. I love what you said about being your longest serving member. Like, that's amazing. What's your favourite aspect of running your own business?
For me, like, I feel like I have a passion in life and a drive, and that is everything I've spoken about today. Like, I live that every day, and so for me, being able to build something around what my passion is absolutely the best thing. It means that I can make decisions that align with my values and align with what I want to do. So that is, for me, 100% the best thing. I can be the one that makes those decisions. But as we've said, like, it's not easy, and I think we'll come on to talk about like the support network soon. But like, especially this program, like we're here to talk about the entrepreneur mentorship program, Women in Football and Xero, and it has been like invaluable for me. Like, first of all, I've got an opportunity right now to be speaking at Wembley, which I would not have if I was not on this program, so that's amazing. And we've done, it's basically been like a crash course in setting up your business and all of those theory aspects that you need to know, because while you might know what your product or your service is really, really well, actually running a business is a completely different thing. Like, there's so many other things you need to take into account there. So it's been amazing in that respect, but actually, for me, like, the best thing about being on this program has been the cohort of other women that I've been doing it with, because, you know, when you run something on your own, you ask the question before, like, who do you ask? Who do you ask if you say yes or no? Like, it happened to me at Christmas that everyone was talking about the Christmas parties, and I had a moment where I was like, I don't have that anymore. Like, it's just me. Like, I can go to the pub and have a pint, but that's it.
We should do one.
We do joint one. We actually do joint Christmas parties with other small businesses.
Yes, I'll come to that.
So, yeah, you can come to our next Christmas party.
So, like, the cohort of women that are doing the program now, like, we've got a WhatsApp group. It's a bit like a support group, because, you know, someone might have an accountant and someone needs an accountant, or might need a template for a contract or whatever it is. Like, that for me has been the biggest thing I'll take out of this program. It's been amazing.
Yeah, when I set up my business, and it was during COVID, I just called up Jo Tung, and we were laughing yesterday because I was talking to her team, and they were like, "Oh, you've got the same accountant, and you've got the same IT guy, and you've got this." I was like, "Yeah, I have everything that you have." She told me what to do, and I just did it. So it's interesting. You'll probably find all these whiff businesses they've got exactly the same accountant. There's some accountants out there absolutely cleaning up out of whiff. Kate, what have you found both the professional and the personal benefits of running your own businesses have been?
So I would say, well, I used to say that I now live a life without brackets, because I used to sort of feel like I was living to the weekend and stuff, but that's not always a good thing, because sometimes there's literally no brackets because it's like 7 days of work, and then I'm thinking, oh yeah, I need a break. But I think just being able to sort of manage your time and who you work with, you know, like you were saying, Bex, in terms of choosing the people that you want to work with and stuff, you're obviously completely in control of that. I think like Christmas jumper day and stuff is pretty miserable when you're just there in your spare room.
Just you and your dog,
just in my jumper. And I do find, like, if you've pitched for a piece of work and then they call you or they email you or whatever and say you've got it, and then you're like, okay, well, I'll just carry on then. Nobody else to sort of speak to. But
who do you call in those moments?
My mum, usually.
Your mum,
yeah.
I know. They caught me the other night texting my mum. Who texted my mum? Oh, I got to send the photo.
So no, she's a good inspiration. And same, my parents, well, they were teachers, but then they started their own business when I was a kid, and We actually had a business at one point where instead of buying a newspaper for the date of your birth, you could buy the Beano or the Dandy comic, because then there's no like horrible thing that's going to happen on that day. It's just Desperate Dan or Dennis the Menace. But we literally had a Forever Friends ring binder, which had our handwritten catalogue of every date that we had. And it was in landline day. So we advertised in the Sunday Times and stuff, and people would call. And sometimes I couldn't find the folder, so I'd be like, oh, sorry, the computer's just being slow, just hold 1 minute. And you put them on hold, and we'd be running around going, where's the folder? And so we'd done like scrappy business stuff like that just sort of made me think, have a crack at anything. So I guess professionally, that would be the thing that just gives you more opportunities, I think, to have a go at different things and to put yourself forward for projects that you want to work on or collaborate with people that are already working with people. So,
did you, I mean, across the board, did you all think you had a business in you? Like 10 years ago, do you think you had a business in you? Laura?
I always had the...
It's like the book, right?
Yeah, always had the itch to scratch and like tried to do different little things. And actually, since starting IDO, set up and sold a non-alcoholic gym business as well. So I think technically serial entrepreneur now, which is great. And actually, one thing I was going to say is statistically, you're most likely to be successful on your 4th business and in your 40s. So everyone in the room.
Oh, yikes.
That gives you,
yeah.
So you don't need to be a young thing. You just keep doing your thing, and then you're statistically going to be very successful in your mid-40s. So keep that in mind. But yeah, now I want to be completely unemployable and never go back to working for someone else again.
Other panelists, do you think you always had a bit? Ella, did you think you had it in you?
No, like it's never been on my radar at all. I've always had something that I've cared a lot about, and like similarly, I've done like little projects. Like I've always done extra because of feeling passionate about certain things, but I never saw myself setting up a business. No.
No. Well, I think that's interesting, right? And you have.
Yeah.
So, people in the room or people listening to this conversation or watching it, I don't think any of us necessarily instinctively think that that's what we're going to do. Sometimes a set of circumstances. Bex, I mean, I think you probably thought you had it in you. I think you
sound like a jerk, huh?
No, not so. As an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Did you think it was written or not?
Do you know what? I just like
insecurity?
taking risks. Yeah. I like feeling a bit insecure.
Okay.
So I think it's like it's about like what your character is. I like that insecurity. I like not knowing what's going to happen like the next day. I like a challenge. I get really bored really easily. Run into people and they're like, you've been traveling everywhere. I'm like, have I? I just get bored and I want to go do new things. So I think it's sort of just the nature of my personality. But it doesn't mean that every entrepreneur has to be like that.
No.
There's certain types of businesses that you can set up where you have to be very disciplined. It pays to be in one place at one time and to be a lot more structured and things like that.
Accounting.
Accounting, for example.
Yeah. So let's talk about networks and how networks have helped you. Kate, what is your network of support around you? Who are the people you call and how has it helped you? Because that's what WIF is here to do. I think this is one of our first kind of forays into entrepreneurship, because there are so many women creating businesses and, like Laura said, have seen that there's an opportunity that probably only a woman is going to spot. So how do you use your network to support you?
I mean, definitely organisations like Women in Football are super valuable, and getting out to as many of these sort of events and being able to meet people and speak to people is really key. I'm also so I use co-working space at Soho Works, for example, and they have an app and there's people you can connect with that way and they can sort of put requests out when they're looking for people. Certainly people that I've worked with in the past that I really rate, I keep in touch with and use them as mentors, advisors, etc. Good friends. I mean, we were talking before we came on the panel about how you sort of price services and, that like putting a price out there and managing to stop yourself from saying, but obviously we can, just like saying it's this much. Took me about 4 years to get to that point. But I've got a good friend now that I know what I should do, but I'll message her going, I'm thinking about giving this client 20% discount. And she'll be like, no, wait. And I'm like, you're right. Yep, okay, I will do it. But so having those sort of people that are just going to sort of sanity check things for you, or you can just bounce ideas off, I think is really important as well.
Yeah.
But I think, networking, I think some people are like serial networkers in a more cynical way, and you'll spot them because they add you on LinkedIn, and it's like, and it just, I reject them. But then I sort of liken it that there's certain people who are connectors, like they're like that plug that works with every possible cable, and they're just genuine people that you will speak to them and they'll listen to what you're saying and be like, oh, you should totally meet this person that I know, and they're not doing it for any reason other than they really like connecting people and they want to help. And I think the more people that you can have like that, so anyone in the room who knows Ariana Crescioni, I would say she is absolutely one of those people and is a good friend and has connected me with people, and I would do the same for her. So I think having those sort of people around you is really important as well.
Yeah. Ella, what's the best advice that you've been given as part of the program, or just on I don't want to say the J word, the journey word, but on your progress to creating your own business and having a successful business?
I actually read a quote like the day before I legally incorporated my business, which was, if you don't do it, it will remain undone for the rest of eternity. And for me, that means if I don't do what I know I can do in my way, nobody else will ever be able to do it the way that I can do it. So if there's something that you feel passionate about, you need to do it your way, because no one will be able to replicate it how you can do it. So that would be my quote.
Amazing. That's amazing. Laura, how have you used networks and your community?
So much. Like, most of our fundraising connections come through networks. Similarly, we have a nice little WhatsApp group of all the women that have sports product businesses. So if you're setting something up, then get in touch, because we help each other, even though we're potentially competitors, but you got to help each other. And so often if I've got a query, I'll bounce it off that group, especially because they're like, nah, that contract sounds rubbish, or whatever. And so they deeply understand the roller coaster of the business.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's a theme that's come out. I was at the broadcaster one before about how they were all, when they were kind of coming through the businesses, told that that woman is your competition. That's who you're going. It's that job that you're going up against. But actually, that's not the case anymore, and it's rubbish. And that's not what we're about. Women supporting women, whether you're competitors or not.
If we win, and if my competitor wins, then we all win, because we're changing mindsets and changing the ecosystem and that kind of thing. So I'm to add on your point, pay it forward culture is really big in entrepreneurship. So just introduce someone and don't expect anything back, because it will come back somewhere else.
Yeah.
In fact, probably I would just say shout out to Copa90, and Tom, who runs Copa90, has been so helpful to me, because we have a mutual investor, and he with no expectation of future payback. It's just, hey, I've been through that. Let me help you.
Yeah. Yeah. So pay it back. Bex, you talked about working with people that give you energy and they're the right people. Who are those people? What's the energy? Who are your role models?
One of the people that I've worked with, one of my consultants, she told me, I used to be the kind of person that was like, I'm gonna graft, I'm gonna work hard. So it's like, if I can picture myself starting at A and getting to Z, or Z. You guys know what Z is? Now you know. Getting to Z, I'm gonna stay with okay.
Soccer.
I would be like, I'm gonna go from A to B, and then I'm gonna push from B to C to D, and you take it all the steps, and you push, and you grind, and you graft, and that's a challenge. So how do I overcome that challenge? And she said to me once, if you just go with the right people and the right vibe, and you go with your instinct, and you listen to your gut a little bit more, and if it feels like too big of a challenge, maybe it's just not the right thing for you, all of a sudden you might go from A to J. You might just go, whoop, oh, look where I ended up, because actually that was not the right person, it was not the right timing, it was not the right type of client that I wanted. And so it's a lot more, I think, in the last years I've become better at just listening to my intuition, and listening to in the spaces and places and with different people that I just really get a nice connection with, and you can really feel like I really vibe with that person. And not often it's not you'll find something to work with them on right now, but maybe it's in a year or 2 years or 5 years that all of a sudden you reconnect and you go, oh, the timing's right now.
Yeah.
And that skill set that you were talking about 5 years ago and my skill set now is a much better match, and you can build something a lot bigger. So I really believe in sort of a little bit woo-woo universe and listening to your gut.
Yeah. I always look back at times when I've not listened to my gut, and those are often the mistakes that I've made when I've got on, I knew that wasn't right.
Yeah.
I knew there wasn't something there. How do you got, particularly running your own businesses, how important is that intuition and listening to what your gut is telling you?
Yeah, I think it's super important. I'm not necessarily always great at it. I think, I mean, it's hard, and it depends on the type of business, but I guess on my consultancy business, you can have like real peaks of work where you're slogging your guts out all the time and it's all going well, but you've technically committed to 11 days a week or whatever, and you're trying to fit it all in. But then there can be times where, you know, you're doing the biz dev and speaking with people and trying to get new business in, but maybe none of it's come off, and then you start to think, oh my God, what if I never get another piece of work again? And so you're constantly kind of like that. And I think sometimes in those bits, I'll take on a bit of work that I don't really want to do, and I know that I'm not really going to enjoy it, and it's not
Slog.
Yeah, but I do it because I think, well, it's just me, and I need to pay the rent, and what am I going to do, kind of thing. So I think, and that's 9 years on, I'm still doing that from time to time. So it's hard to. One day I'll get to a point where I'll just read a book when it's quiet. And it's nice.
Do you know what? That's a good point, because I find like in the last years I actually really quite enjoy the downtime. In the beginning, like you have that like panic mode, don't you? Like, and you might get it at work too, where you think, oh, it's a bit slow, like I might get fired, they don't need me, or whatever. It's not just for entrepreneurs. But then you get to the point where you go, I don't really have anything to do today. What should I do today? You know?
I think we're quite conditioned, particularly if you've been employed.
Yeah.
The idea of downtime, the idea of not being at your desk at 9 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. I found this so conditioned. I run my own business now, and if I'm not sitting at my desk at 9, I'm feeling really like, ooh, I was like, no one is going to tell me I should be at my desk. But we become really conditioned to that. So the idea of, today I haven't got that much on,
it's good.
I'm going to take that time. We've got to get a bit more comfortable with that.
It's the definition of productivity as well, I think, that, you know, going out for a walk and letting your mind wander and having some ideas and thinking, oh yeah, I could write that blog on LinkedIn, or I could do whatever, is actually valuable time, but I'll still beat myself up and be like, I haven't been very productive today. I've just not really delivered anything or whatever, but yeah.
But actually feeling good and feeling in the right condition to be able to do the work and get going again, because it can be up and down, it can be exhausting, and sometimes you need to reboot. Laura and Ella, how do you reboot? How do you switch off? Running your business is everything, right? And there's times when it feels like this is everything.
Person to answer this question. At the moment, I do not. This is a big my advocation for don't start your own business. But do, because you have the flexibility and the freedom as well. But I am rubbish at not thinking about it, because I'm always like, oh, you could do this and do that. And to be honest, I was like watching a TV program, and then I invented something that we're now going to patent on the football boots. And so you can never just watch a TV program anymore. And I can never watch a football match because I'm always staring at people's shoes. It's awful. I just want to enjoy the football. And instead I'm like, oh, shouldn't have worn those ones.
I know, look at the branding boards.
Exercise though. As much exercise as you can, because when you're having a football thrown at you, you can't think about much else.
Totally. Ella, how do you switch off?
Yeah, it's funny, like my switch off always used to be football, and now it's so not. Like, I can't play five-a-side anymore because all I'm thinking about is football, like the work side of football. I agree, exercise, like getting outside, something like that. But it's really hard, and I'm so early on into my business that it's really, really hard to switch off, because I've always got something, a new idea, like I don't want to miss any opportunities, so I do find it hard. I'm keen to hear how you switch off.
I do nothing to do with football, because I think I've spent so much of my life in football, and when I retired, I was like, I am never watching another game of football again.
How's that going?
Then I went and worked at FIFA, and my job was to make sure the games were organized properly. And then when I quit FIFA, I was like, I'm never going to watch another game of football again. But I do a lot of non-football stuff. I love music. I love to travel. I love hanging out with most of my friends have nothing to do with football. Like half of them don't even know what I do, and I never talk about what I do. I do a lot of exercise. Love exercising. What else? I don't even know. Every day something new. You know what I do though? I block out Monday mornings. This was like one of the things where I'm like, I'm going to start my own company, and I'm not going to do jack shiz on Monday morning. So like Monday morning from like 8 a.m. till 12, I just like block it out, and I'm like nothing. So if I want to do something, I do, and if I don't, so I always look forward to Mondays.
Nice. I think the only thing I'd say as well to counter that is, when it is your own business, it's not actually it doesn't always feel like work. And I think I did used to think like, oh, I've got to have work and then I've got to have rest. But actually, if you are watching a documentary and also thinking about your business, like it's not a hardship really, and we can probably blur the lines a bit more
Yeah.
in a positive way.
Yeah. I do actually go back to football because when I'm coaching under 10s and 14s, I can turn up sometimes and look at my co-coach and go, I've had a really shit day. And he's looking at me going, oh, she's not looking good. And literally 2 minutes later, there's nothing else that you can possibly think about. So it's interesting how we kind of come and go with the things that we love and how we're able to switch off. I think we're coming up to about 5 minutes to go. Before we wrap up with the panel, has anyone got any questions at all for the panel?
I've got one for you. You're still coaching?
Yeah.
You're coaching your
Do
kids'
two teams.
Do you actually?
Well, the youngest was like, well, you did her. So what about me? So yeah.
So that's your other business, is your coaching.
It's my coaching.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Well
But
done.
it does. It's the switch off. I absolutely adore it, and it keeps you sane. And you've got to think about other people. You've got to think about 20 kids rather than what happened in the daytime.
So fun.
Where have we got a question? Jackie. Come in.
Forgive me if you've already answered this because I was sort of out the room for part of it, but I'm really fascinated by time management. Have you covered this yet? I heard what you were just saying.
No, we haven't.
But when you don't have what I would describe as a proper job, like me being a football commentator, like you women working for yourselves, when you have a boatload of emails, and Lisa, you're a mum as well, so I don't know if many of you other are as well, and you have lots of things to juggle basically, but different types of things, not all to do with the same thing. How do you manage your time effectively? That's my question.
Who wants to answer that?
I can have
Kate and then Kate and then Laura.
So I'd say I'm good in some ways in that I use a time tracking tool because I've got like various different clients, so I know what I'm doing with them. Email, though, I would say is a trickier one. Some days it's just whoever is going to be the most annoyed if I don't reply, and I would sort of address it in that way.
So be annoying, basically.
But I try to sort of, Friday afternoon for me, I'll try not to book anything in and have it as a bit of an admin thing, not with coffee and cake like you were saying, though. That sounds, I need to upgrade it. And try and at least like streamline my inbox and that kind of thing. I try to only ever have 50 emails in my inbox in terms of one page of Gmail. So I kind of clear it down that way. But the other advice that I'd give on time management is if you are working with multiple clients, I think I'm probably too generous in that if I do a piece of work for a client for 20 minutes, I log it as 20 minutes. And there's the whole, like, my brain now has to switch from that client to another client that they're not paying for. So I think I need to get a bit stricter on that.
But you will after today,
Yeah.
because you just identified it.
There
Well
you go.
done you. There you go.
Any other thoughts, Laura?
So I have 2 kids, and obviously the baby that is the business, and so it is quite busy. But what I've moved to, so I've given up on emails. Don't email me; I won't respond.
I like that. I
Yeah,
might use
but
that.
what I do each morning is I write on a post-it note, and it's only what I can fit on the post-it note, and I am ruthlessly prioritizing what's going to turn the dial on the business that I can do. So either it's delegating something to somebody else, because that's often a hold-up. You can be more efficient by if you've got a team being able to do that, or is it going to be a revenue-generating thing? So last week I took a call in my pajamas at 7:30, which hopefully will get us a UK retailer. We've been chasing them for a long time, which is probably the most effective thing I could have done that entire week. So I didn't feel guilty about the fact that my 4-year-old was shouting at me at the same time. That half-an-hour phone call was the most important thing I could have done. So being like almost understanding triaging what's going to be the thing that really makes the leap forward for you that day.
Yeah.
And ignore emails. Yeah, they'll get done.
That is
eventually.
hilarious.
I do think I turned every notification off. I don't have any notifications on my phone. I do think that is changed so much in my career, the ability to be distracted. And there are some days I literally have to write at the top of my page, discipline, because it's so easy to be, and I look at my kids doing homework now, and I went up and I was livid with the iPad or something playing on the phone while she's doing so. I was like, you can't. And I think it's really hard. I really struggle to not get distracted, but it is that prioritization. Am I going to lose a client because I've switched my emails off for an hour and a half? Pretty unlikely, and if I do, then there's probably no hope anyway. But the discipline, I think, is the hardest thing to constantly have to battle. And sometimes the kids throw something up and they've got to take priority, and they've got to be. Sometimes not. Yeah, it's so hard, really hard. Any other questions? I think we've got 30 seconds.
While we're waiting, no, go ahead.
Go on, we've got one question over here.
With a room full of incredible people, well, my question is that, my point being that not everybody should become an entrepreneur because it isn't right for everybody.
Yep.
But with the people in the room, the aspects of angel investing, especially female angel investors, how do you think that we can support to get them to actually come in the cap table, especially after the Chancellor trying to change the ability for female investors to come in, and it made it very difficult, in some regions impossible for them to come in. Thankfully, they reverted on that policy. But how do we get more angel females to come in to actually take on that non-exec or executive role and also put money into female-founded businesses?
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've come across this recently because we're chatting to some female investors, but they don't know much about women's football or women's sport, so they're a bit reticent to come in because they haven't educated themselves. So it's definitely a kind of matchmaking thing that I think needs to happen, where we, sitting up here and you guys in the room, we all know loads about women's football and are considered experts to everyone else out there, and helping the people that are perhaps have got the money but don't necessarily know the subject matter to connect and really understand it, so that you're reducing the barriers and the friction to them going, actually, yeah, this is a great opportunity and a great proposition to support. So education is the big one. And I'd love a business, right, this is another business, syndicates. So it's really hard actually to get women to invest because we don't have as much money in general. So easier ways to invest as groups. So this is why I think crowdfunding is a really interesting proposition, especially in the UK, because you can kind of clump together a lot of smaller amounts of money to have that people power and change. So it's a good way, definitely, to fundraise.
Angel City.
Angel City.
Conglomerate model.
Yeah.
Excellent question, thank you. That is our time. I think there's a question at the back, but I'm sure that everyone will be around to have a quick chat. I just want to thank so much Kate, Bex, Ella and Laura, who are incredible women. I'm really inspired by their businesses. Well done.